Hello. I'm sitting here next to my dear friend slash sister, Phuonggy, and some of you might have known Phuonggy from um, an episode that we did before.
On the official daughters.
Yes, because she is also the host of a podcast that she's running, where she also invited me to come and talk to her audience about what topic?
I think it was about empathy.
Empathy,
and, also
right.
career marketing. And just
Yeah, and self-love.
self-love, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll put the link in the description box below for anyone who's interested in listening to that episode again. But for me, I'm so happy to have you here, and as you can see, we just finished our yoga class together this morning and just grabbing lunch together. And the topic we want to talk to you guys about today, actually, this started from our conversation right before we recorded this video, as we were talking about some boundary setting conversations, and we just thought that it may be also helpful for you guys if we record it and share with you guys our conversation. So, Phuonggy, why don't you start by introducing yourself first, and then at the same time we can have lunch.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Phuonggy. I just graduated from USC 2 months ago. I just currently moved back to New York for my full-time job in finance, and I have been
So proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, glad I made it back to the city. I met Zip because she was the guest for my Dear Future Daughter podcast, where she was sending messages about self-love and empathy, and also just generally about her career in the marketing and media sector to the future generations of young girls and female leaders. So yeah, it's great to.
And we gotta give Cha a
And Cha
shout
as
out.
well, yes. So
Yeah.
Cha was my co-host for that episode. She also just graduated from Denmark a month ago. Gonna move to Jersey for her full-time job. So it was great.
Yeah.
And Cha was the one that connected us. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Cha, if you're listening to this. So yeah, let's kind of like circle back to our conversation about boundary setting, because there's something that is very interesting in there that I think is not just an issue that is unique to you, because in our conversation I can relate to so much of the struggle that you're going through. Coming from someone who has the hardest time to set boundaries with anyone. Because I think that for people like us, we always want to be everything for everyone, and I think part of it is also the culture that we grew up in, right? That we always want to prioritize the harmony in the relationships, and there's a phrase in Vietnam, it's called dĩ hòa vi quý.
Yes.
Right? And it literally, that's what it means, to prioritize the harmony over self-interest or personal feelings. And I am guilty of that, because even though I do think that there's a lot of values and benefits in being giving and just being selfless and being community and people oriented, because that to me is my core value. But on the other hand, one of my biggest struggles as well is setting the boundaries where enough is enough.
Yeah.
But obviously, at least I'm a few years older than where I used to be at your age. So I'm not saying that I get to the point where I feel like boundary setting is never an issue for me before, but hopefully in our conversation I can share some of my coping mechanism or the things that I've been finding that's helpful for me with you and with our audience.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great introduction. I think bringing up the cultural context is great because I think as girls, and I mean in the Vietnamese culture, I guess we're always taught to be, I guess, nurturing, giving, and also sacrifice. I guess grandmothers and mothers in Vietnam, they are the most giving and nurturing people ever. I think these women are really strong, independent people, but it's always about giving the best or sacrificing your needs for the needs of your families. And so as a young girl growing up in that culture, you kind of learn to compromise and sacrifice a lot. We are taught a lot about empathy, and we are taught a lot about how to give and how to be a better member.
Which is
of
the
community.
value that we appreciate, right?
Yeah, we appreciate, and I think it helps. I left home pretty early to be in Singapore, and I have lived in a lot of places. So I live with people, and I learned to kind of compromise, because that is you never get a perfect roommate or perfect friend. It's just even in the like
Show you guys what we are
yeah,
eating.
this is the tofu bites. So even in the like really long-term friendship that I have, which lasts for like 5-10 years, there are still a lot of the road is bumpy, it's not full of roses, and there's a lot of communication that is required in order for things to be worked out. And I'm guilty of always being the one that bothered up about my feelings, and sometimes I just feel like if I don't say it, I just feel like I don't mind, and I shouldn't mind things, because if I anything that makes myself annoyed, I always kind of talk it down by saying that, oh, Phuong, you're overthinking again, it's not a big deal. But then over time I realized that certain sense of not resentment, but there's certain kind of mild aggression within myself built up, even with like some of my close friends, or even in romantic relationship, when just because I choose not to communicate my feelings. So I guess it's come down to two issues. I think the first thing is I don't love myself enough sometimes, and second thing is maybe also it has to do with self-esteem, because when you don't feel confident, you might feel like you don't deserve something better, and then you scared. You have the scarcity mindset, like, what if I can't find any other friends or any other partner?
But why do you think that you had that problem with yourself, that you feel like you're not enough, or you feel like I'm asking you, like, why do you think that you have that?
I think I'm sure it's a combination of different experiences. It can be
Based on past experience.
Yeah, based on past experience. I mean, let's say friendship. It's the easiest thing to say, I guess. I guess in secondary school back in Vietnam, I was going through puberty period. My face wasn't looking very good. I had a lot of pimples, and
We all went through that phase, by the way.
And I feel, and also I think so. I kind of got mocked from my parents a lot, and always feel like an outcast. So I always feel like, okay, if I don't have the appearance needed to fit in, I always need to please people with something else. Like, I remember, and about boundary setting, this is really, it actually matches the context, because I would remember having friends calling me for 3 hours, 4 hours of my time at home, and asking me for homework, and that's it. They don't talk to me about anything else but homework. And I feel like, oh my God, I think that's the only way that they could befriend me. And these kids are actually the kind of cool kids in school, and so when they call me, I feel great. I would give away like my whole day to help them. So I think we start with that. I think when we start with that, I would realize I always have this need of offering to fit in, and when I'm so happy, and I'm so excited. I was so excited to be accepted by them, to be recognized by them for my academic ability, because finally something compensated for the appearance shortcomings that prevented me from fitting in.
So, by the way, eat this because it's so delicious.
Yeah.
Can I just show people what we are having? This one as well.
Yeah.
It is so good, guys. I highly recommend it. This, what is it called? The rice
tofu bite.
Tofu bites. Tofu bites. We got this from
Rice Kitchen.
in Soho. So good.
Hard to eat.
Yeah, so you gotta start eating.
Yeah.
But before we talk about anything else, can I just say that you're beautiful?
Thank you.
Yes, and oh my God, like I cannot relate more to what you just shared because that's literally how I felt when I was younger as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I was never the best student in the class, if not the opposite. So I didn't have that issue that people come to me for advice on homework or to do their assignments. Uh, so that is different from my experience. But but what I went through is also very similar in a sense that it's good, right?
So good.
Yeah. I was also very inconfident about my physical appearance, and I always thought that my character is what going to compensate that. So instead of people going to me for help for their homework, a lot of them go to me for example, like the network that I have, or for just have a good time for fun because I was so kind of like ashamed in a way about how I looked when I was younger, which is why I doubled down on my character. And that's something that I felt pretty proud of myself, that like people like spending time with me and like being my friends. But then to your point, like at the end of the day, when you reflect back on it, and you just don't know whether that comes from a genuine place, and I think what was unhealthy for me is that I went into a rabbit hole of thinking that I was used, that I was taken advantage of, and that's not a pleasant feeling, and I think that's why, similar to how you're feeling, that when you think about the urge of knowing how to set boundaries, because you don't want to feel that way about yourself. Like no one wants to feel like they are being used or taken advantage of. So going back to what you were sharing, I think one of the things that I've learned for myself throughout years of questioning myself is what is important to me. It's always about what I value at the end of the day, because if what I value is being likable and the people that are in my life, regardless whether they are toxic or not, and if that is my priority, then I have to accept the fact that like I have to keep pleasing other people and sacrificing my own needs and keeping everything within myself, But if my value, or if what my priority is actually to have a happy life, it flips the perspective instantly. Because when you want to have a happy life, of course it means that you will also have the people who love you in your life, and of course you will be able to have like you will feel good about your life, about your network, about your like everything just align. That's how I realize when I'm happy or not, is when everything aligns. And even regardless whether it appears to be working for others or not, as long as I feel aligned within myself, that's how I know that I'm happy. And that, when I flip my perspective to talk to myself that my priority, or what I value, is actually not to be liked by everyone, but just to have a happy life, it naturally detox the people who are not meant to be in my life, or who are healthy for me out of my life, and gradually attract the right people into my life, whom I don't have to worry about are they taking advantage of me, or do they have any kind of hidden motives. When they approach me, can I trust this person, because I know that I already filtered it out from the first place. You know what I mean? Because I think that Phuonggy knows me enough in real life that she knows you know my network pretty well.
Yeah.
And I think that I can say this without a doubt, that you can tell that I do not have to worry about that for the people who are in my network.
Yeah, and I think onto that point about having people that you can feel comfortable asking for help, and also understanding when you need to say no and who you are comfortable saying no to. I think that is important. I think those are gonna be the friends that is gonna have your back most of the time. I think, and also I think it does come with age and time. I think
It does.
For
I wasn't like this before, guys. Just so you know.
And like, I guess for people in like early 20s, I think when, especially let's say for me, I just moved city. Every time I move city, there's that mindset of who is gonna be my friend, and so it's like yes mentality. You say yes to everything. Like you say yes to events because you want so formal, and you also feel like, what if you're gonna meet the friend or the partner of your dream or your life here in this event today, and you keep going, and
New York is the best city to be formal.
It's like the best and the worst too, because like there's so many things going on all the time, and you see this person who knows so many other people, and you're like, oh my god, am I doing okay? Like, am I not active enough? You always feel like you don't do enough, and because of that you keep saying yes, and that's making it harder to set boundaries.
Can I stop you right there, because this is actually something that I wrote down my notes before as well. Is I think that people who always say yes or always say no, these people don't understand the value of their time.
Right.
And by the way, I'm one of them. I'm not saying I'm not judging anyone, but I knew that is because I was always one of those who say yes. And it does come with age. But here's the thing. Here's the flip side of it, because I never think that something is purely bad or purely good. There's always colors within context. So when we are young, I think it's good to say yes. I do think that it's good to just go for it, to sign up for experiences. But going back to the topic we are talking about today, is know when to say no. So saying yes is not a bad thing. And I, even at this age, I find myself saying yeses more than no. But at the same time, I think when it comes to boundary setting, understanding the why we need to set boundary is actually the most important thing. Because if I keep telling myself that, Zip, you need to set boundary, you need to set boundary, you need to set boundary, I will never be able to do that. But if I truly understand the why, the reason why I need to set boundary, and I can forget everything else. But if I keep coming back to the why, then it allows me to actually do the right thing for myself.
Right.
And the why that we are talking about can be because of your mental health, of your self-worth, to communicate your values as well, right? Because the thing about people who keep saying yeses is that sometimes, no matter how great you are, you feel like you're taken for granted. That and this just human nature, by the way. There's nothing wrong about people who actually take you for granted because of that, and the reason is because you allow them to.
Yes.
You know. So, but at the same time, value is very subjective.
Yeah.
And that's why when I know that I need to set boundary, I have to remind myself that the reason why I will do it differently this time, instead of throwing myself before someone even need me. Like that's actually my tendency. It's not like people just come to me for help and then I help them. But one of my challenges that I know there's a fact about me is that I even offer help before someone even need help from me. And I know that I don't feel good about when I mean there are a lot of times that people appreciate that, but there are a lot of times when I have to sit with myself and I'm like, oh, I just feel horrible. Like I just feel like I'm not appreciated.
Yeah.
And I at the same time I don't feel seen.
Yeah.
Because for example, you have so many aspects of values in yourself that for the friends who only come to you for homework, you feel like you are not seen by them.
Yeah.
Because that's all that they see in you. In the meantime, you're trying to prove yourself that you're worth more than just a homework master. And that's why it's a really horrible feeling.
I think feeling taken for granted is something I experience a lot, and I feel really horrible when I have to say it because I just can't bring myself to say it. It happens in friendship, in relationship, because again, shouldn't you give without expecting? Like, shouldn't you? I don't know. I mean, when it's like you shouldn't treat life as a transaction. You shouldn't treat relationship as a transaction, right?
It's not. Yeah.
Which is never our intention. But then when you kind of keep giving, and I think I used to be like you sometimes, just like maybe seeing someone potentially needing help or whatever, I would offer, or sometimes I need space. As extroverted as I am, I need space sometimes, but then I feel like, okay, maybe my friend is in town today and no one's taking the person to go out, and they kind of only know me, or they stay with me. I host them, which doesn't mean that I have to bring them around because I do have my own work to do. But it's also hard to communicate those things. Like, I think that thing with friends or with romantic partner, it's get even harder. Like, how do you say?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, like
in relationship.
In relationship, I think it's hard. Like, I feel bad for saying, oh, I want to spend time away from you and go and to meet my friends, or and things like that. I think it, especially when it's early stage relationship, I think it's difficult. And then after a while, I just have trouble like saying yes. When you just have a pattern of keep saying yes, the more you do it involuntarily, like the more you kind of force yourself to do it, and the harder it gets to say no. And then same thing when it comes to physical intimacy and things like that. I find myself consistently having trouble saying no as well. So it's not just
really?
I don't know why. I just feel like it's just difficult. So then at the end of the day, it's like I would like feel drained or feel taken for granted, and it's something.
And then it builds up your resentment.
Yeah, it builds up
and
the
it's
resentment.
very unhealthy.
And I overthink, and then what happened with, like, I have a lot of long distance friends just because I went to Singapore, and a lot of my close friends in high school are from there. And we would used to schedule calls, and then they would be like, they would like cancel on me last minute. And it happened repeatedly, or they would forget, or like sometimes scheduling calls and people don't turn up in group calls, for example. And that, I mean, everyone have their priorities, but then when you, or like a specific, people keep being the one making the plans and trying to provide support and trying to bring different people together, and then the rest is just like, doing the bare minimum and don't even try to keep the relationship going, or you feel like you would always be available to listen to their issues, whereas when you need them, it's kind of hard to reach them. It would, gradually, it just, you didn't mind listening to them at the point of time, but then obviously over time, you feel drained. You start questioning the friendship. You start feeling like it's just really one-sided. then you feel guilty for feeling like that, because isn't that your friend? Shouldn't you feel like, shouldn't you just listen to them without expecting anything? And so you start feeling guilty as well. So it's just constantly feeling taken for granted and then also feeling guilty. So it's like a double negative feelings that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn to communicate, then this double negativity is gonna like kind of eat you inside, which I think is not really good.
Yeah. There's so much in that I want to explore. But yeah, I think, funny enough, when you mentioned the double negativity, the double negativity feeling that you just talked about, I think the things that a lot of that we already kind of knew
Yeah.
that is gonna come, because to your point about, and also the reason why we're having this conversation today is because this is based on your past experience. So we are all trained based on how we experience life in the past, and it kind of like some people also have trust issue because of that, right? When we think about having trust issue, so there are a lot of things that we even sense before it's coming.
Yes, I agree.
Not to say that it's always right, because sometimes there's a fine line between having a good judgment and having trust issue. But in this episode, I want to talk about like the gut feeling.
Yeah.
When you sense that something isn't right, because that is actually the signal, the red flag that you should have caught and relied on your gut feeling, your instinct, to be more cautious. Because, for example, my default is to always be open and selfless to everyone. It's just my default setting,
Right.
But what I'm paying attention to is how I feel after my interaction with other people, because it would be it would not be wise for us to just say, this who I am, and I'm just gonna keep giving until I am completely out of battery. And what you don't want to happen is that you want to start blaming other people for your own feeling. So what I do for myself is that I own it to myself, that I do not blame anyone for how I feel, because I'm in control of how I select people to be in my circle, of how I react, how I respond to situations. And no matter what you've done in the past, you can always change that moving forward. And the beautiful thing about you is that that's, don't lose that in you, because that's how you attract the right people in your life. Like I love you for that fact. But at the same time, this value will only be appreciated by the right people. So I'm saying this to you is because I don't want you to lose that, because it's beautiful, and we need more people like that. But what I want you to start paying attention to is listening to your own body, how you feel, your own energy, how you feel when you are surrounded by certain people, both friendship and romantic relationships. Do you feel safe? That's the most important thing. Do you feel safe? And do you feel equal?
Yeah.
And when I say equal here, it's not about putting the equal effort in the relationship, because sometimes you need to put more, sometimes you put less, depending on the day. Sometimes I know that I have a lot of energy, for example. So I usually don't expect someone to meet my energy at the level that I am, and that's something I've learned the hard way. For me to just understand that, it's unfair to expect the same from other people on any given day. But how it works is that you need to feel equal to the other person, So we are friends, right? Because we feel equal. I don't feel like you're any less than me. Despite you being much younger than me, like I never think that Phuonggy is less than me. So that allows us to have that like very healthy relationship, and we can talk about anything. And I can trust you wholeheartedly, and you can trust me wholeheartedly because of that. Because you don't have to set boundary with the people that will always value you the same as you value them. And boundary setting usually is the question for us when we feel like there's that inequality. And it's totally subjective, by the way. And since you mentioned romantic relationships, right? What's very interesting to me when she shared is that you also had the difficulty setting the physical boundary. And I think that someone you need to understand why you have that challenge setting the physical boundary, because I understand when it comes to helping others, I know why it could be hard for people who are accustomed to be the giver. But I would like to know more about why you think that you have a hard time setting physical boundary with a romantic partner, for example.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, to be fair, what I define as difficult setting boundaries when it comes to physical, I think so far I still manage to say no, but it often comes with a lot of guilt. Or I struggle to come to that no. Like it just, I think it's because, firstly, again, I was always not confident in my femininity and in my appearance. And then I think I had a past dating experience where the person kind of dismissed that physical boundaries as not being liberal enough or not. And then the third thing is I don't date a lot of people. I didn't date a lot of people in my life so far. So I always feel like my insufficient dating experience need to be made up or need to be compensated for by something else. And that's why I always feel I apologize a lot in relationship.
So is it because of the scarcity mindset?
I think it's the scarcity mindset. You just feel like, you will never find someone. But the truth is, you will. I think it gets better with experience. Actually, based on mine, I think that's the positive part. And I talked to my friend about this the other day that we don't wanna, because she experienced. She also went through a breakup, and we're talking about it. We're like, okay, we don't want to lose trust and hope in future relationship, and we want to do better compared to our previous relationship. It's always want to do better and make progress. But because again we are so self-aware and we always think about making progress and making ourselves do better, that sometimes we overlook the red flags, whether or we say yes when, or we accept certain things that actually our gut feelings tell us to say no to. And when it comes to trust and instincts, with both friendship and relationships, a lot of the time I feel like my gut instinct is screaming something, but I'm too scared to listen to it, even though so I think that is something that I'm still working with. But a lot of the time the takeaway for me is just trust your gut instinct. I think the conclusion from a lot of the mishaps that I experience is had I listened to my gut instinct, it would have just been, this thing would have
Yeah.
been avoided. So,
But let go further than
Uh-huh.
just gut instinct,
Uh-huh.
right? Because instinct to me is a signal. But I think what's even more important is how you communicate your value. Um, and going back to the reason why we need to set boundaries, because for me, just using myself as an example, that I always remind myself that I want to be happy. And in order for me to be happy, I know that I cannot feel that I'm not enough, so
Right.
I'm working backwards from the end goal of having a happy life and going back to like, okay, what action I need to take. So by understanding that my goal is just to have a happy life, and not thinking about what's in front of me, and just start from the goal and work backwards to think, okay, so if I do want to be happy, then what are the things that I can tolerate and what are the things that I can't? Because even though you already know that, it's not convincing enough for you to even take
Yes.
the action.
Yeah.
If you don't start from the end.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? So like that's kind of like how I've learned the hard way to understand how to set boundary is actually not to remember how, but to remember why. And when you understand the why and you work backwards to understand the how, which is, how am I going to fulfill my life? And that is when you are able to understand the course of action you need to take, and you can list out the things that you are okay to let it pass now versus what are the deal breakers for you. And working backwards from why is always more powerful to me. And at the same time, one of the kind of like a must-have in a happy life for me is a healthy relationship.
Right.
So when I remind myself that in order for me to have a happy life, like the relationship in my life have to be healthy. It allows me to feel very like there's a sense of lightness in me when I let things go and let people go who are not meant to be in my life. Because if I start from like, okay, this is someone who is not good for my mental health, and I need to set boundary with this person. Usually it's very hard for me to do when that's my thought process. But if my thought process comes from me not wanting to have any unhealthy relationship in my life, and this is how I'm going to do it, and these are the people who maybe at this time is not very good for me. Not saying that they are bad people, by the way. Like, I never think that someone is bad. But sometimes they are just not good for you at this time in your life, that you just need to let go. And at the same time, remind yourself that when you feel secure about yourself, you communicate your value, and that person may look at you differently and value you at the level that you would like them to value you. So that's again. And even if they don't, that's also again because now you move on. And it allows you to have that abundance mindset, because you're not stuck in just one person. And the abundance mindset has to start from knowing that you always have yourself, and it has to start from making yourself feel whole. And the reason why a lot of people have the scarcity mindset, and I was one of them, is because you don't feel whole yet. You know, so you always feel like someone has to complete you, and that's why you're afraid of losing that person, and that's why it's hard for you to set the boundaries. That's how it works in your mind.
Right.
And that's why not setting boundaries is how you feel like you're valued and appreciated and loved, because we all want to be loved.
Yeah.
But that's not how you're gonna fulfill the love for yourself, because you are always dependent on other people to give you that love. And that's why it's very hard for you to set the boundary if that's still like the pattern that you're following. So you need to break the pattern.
Yeah.
And you have to flip the perspective.
Yeah.
To start from why and work backwards.
Yeah. I know what you mean, and I think since you mentioned something that made me realize that it can be a cycle. So about the scarcity mindset and not setting boundaries. So you don't set boundaries because you want, like you said, you want to be seen, you want to be loved, you want to be accepted. But then because you don't set boundaries, the person starts taking you for granted, or they don't value you equally for who you are. And then you realize that, and then there's aggression, and then you kind of fall apart. Now this person left your life. You are now again left with this fear, these trust issues, and this fear of abandonment. And because of that, you continue to have this scarcity mindset. Then when the next person comes, you continue to not set boundaries because, oh my God, I was left by someone. I was not taken for granted, so now I need to work harder. So then again, it's like a cycle.
And by the way, when you don't learn the lesson, the same lesson will keep happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you need to break your own pattern.
Yeah.
And I think talking to other people helps, you know, because I spent so much time talking inside my own head in the past, which is kind of like a double-edged sword for me, because that's how I gain a lot of the lesson learned for myself. But it took me a very long time to get there, and it was very lonely. And sometimes it's just very helpful to talk to someone, like the conversation we have today, to get it out of your head, but also gain a new perspective to help you break the pattern that you have. Because even if you're aware of that, we are just not objective enough, you know, to really see it from a fresh perspective. And this has nothing to do with how wise you are or how intelligent you are, because you can always go into that trap again.
I don't know.
So let's talk about how we can actually set the boundary, right? Because we already talked about the why, the what. But there are two ways. But before we get there, I think that the most important thing is that you have to have the courage to be disliked. You have to have the courage to communicate. And communication is so important. Like, I can't stress enough how important communication is, because sometimes you think this person doesn't value you, but sometimes they just don't know that they have that effect on you.
Right.
So that is one thing that you can already solve if you are able to communicate, and just by saying that, you know, you don't have to burn bridge or anything, but you can just say, this is what I think. And I would like to know what you think. And come from a place of love. You know, come from a place of not the resentment that you build up, but from a place of empathy. And put yourself in their shoes as well when you communicate. So it has to start from communication. But then what? Then if you do need to set the boundary, there are two ways that I know that has been very effective for me, if I remember. Actually, three ways. One is to always establish your principles. This is probably like the most effective for me, and I only learned how to do it recently, because I can get really overwhelmed with so many people reaching out and asking me for my time, which I always love, by the way. I love this. I love knowing that I'm able to help someone, and I love helping people. But when I feel like I'm spreading myself too thin and I don't have the time for myself anymore. And sometimes, I think what a lot of people don't know is listening is hard work.
Yes.
You know, as much as I enjoy a conversation, it can be draining for me afterwards because I put a lot of my energy into listening.
Yeah.
So at the same time, I need to be able to have the time to recharge myself. And I didn't know how to say no to people when they reach out to me for help. And it used to be easy for me to have like one-to-one conversation with others before, but it's becoming more and more like easier for me that I'm not able to offer the same one-to-one conversation with just anyone. Like now I have to learn how to be more selective. And what I've learned for myself is that when I establish this my principle, that we know that relationships are not transactional, right? And that's why, in order for me to know that when I help someone, I also feel good about it, rather than draining myself, is to let them understand when I'm able to help, and let them understand that I have other priorities in my life as well, so that we can meet at the same level in terms of sharing the same kind of appreciation for each other's time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because my tendency is that I can talk to you right now if you need me.
Yeah.
And I have to learn a hard way to like start establishing my principles that I also have other priorities, and I need to understand what the other priorities are before I just throw myself into just like being everything for everyone.
Yeah.
So that's number one. And also allowing them to meet you where you are. I don't think that is a bad thing actually from the other person's perspective. Maybe they would also appreciate that, to be able to meet you where you are, and to help you as well.
Yeah.
So principle is one, and then the second one that I want to talk to you about is physical space. So sometimes taking a trip away, a solo trip away, is a good way to tap into your solitude and clear out the noises and get away from people, to recharge yourself. When you feel full, you can come back again.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I love solo traveling, not because I don't like people, but because I know that sometimes I just need to get away and to tap into myself again. And by establishing that physical space and boundary, it allows you to, especially for people like us who have a hard time to say no, you can't even say no when you're not present. I mean, you can't even say yes when you're not present. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So actively creating that physical space for yourself, whether by going on a trip or just being occupied with other things happening in your life, and communicate that, going back to number one principle, communicate that priorities that to others so that they understand and meet you where you are. So that's number two, the physical space. And number three is the mental space. And when I say mental space, it is very relevant to the society we are living right now, when social media, let's talk about social media, because I believe that when it's hard for us to say no, or to draw the boundary, it's better to be kind of similar to number two, is like outside our mind. And sometimes you you can unfollow people
Yeah.
on social media or mute them temporarily to protect that mental space for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I'm saying that it's not just physical but also mental.
Yeah.
Or you can, or if you have a hard time doing that, then maybe deactivate your social media so that you don't get bombarded with the fact that you're constantly thinking about someone or like seeing someone,
Yeah.
or getting FOMO,
Yeah.
and occupy your mind with other things, with the things that, you know, it could be a project that you love working on, it could be other activities, or you know, like the healthier thoughts, you know, creating that space for healthy thoughts
Yeah.
in your mind, so that it detox
Yeah.
the negative thoughts,
Yeah.
and your space that you are protecting and keeping for other people
Right.
who are not healthy for you,
Yeah.
in your mind.
Yeah.
So those are like the three things that I know that has been helping me a lot.
Yeah, I think traveling is definitely a huge thing for me. Not depending on when I can afford it. I hopefully achieving that financial freedom soon. Now that I kind of start working, I can start taking more solo trip. And I guess I do take a while to reply texts. But I think I just tell that to my friends and my even partners. I think that's important because I'm not someone who can like constantly texting. I just can't do it. It's a lot of work. And sometimes when my friends like want to call, whatever, if I don't have the mental capacity to, and I mean, you know, I can say that immediately. I also have the option of not replying or taking the call and say I'm busy with something. A lot of the time communication is good, but a lot of the time you don't have to explain yourself like excessively. I think people, I think it's we're at an age and stage of life where people need to understand that everyone have their priorities, and you know, I think if you are respectful enough to tell them that you are occupied with something, you don't have the capacity, but you're willing to get back to them at a later time and listen to their story, I think that's great. I think then you know that is enough. You don't have to tell, or I think because I tend to over explain, I'm going through this and this, even though I kind of don't want to tell them, but I feel bad because I don't listen to
But
them.
like that go back to what is effective communication, right?
Right.
By the way, before we say that, I just need to say something about making enough of money to go on a trip. You don't have to have a lot of money to go on a trip. You can just take a walk out. That is already physical space.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I meant by creating that physical space for yourself. Is sometimes you just take a walk and put your headphone in, listen to your favorite music, and not checking your phone. You know. You don't need a lot of money to have that. So that's important.
I agree.
But again, going back to communication, I agree. There's no need for you to over-explain yourself, and TMI is never a good thing. It's just good for you to know who are the people that are important in your life, that you need them to know that you do care, but right now you don't have the time yet. You know, because sometimes at the same time, because the thing is, you got hurt from this, right?
Yes.
And guess what? Other people may also interpret this the same way. So it's true that there's no need for you to over-explain yourself. But you need to understand who are the people that you want them to know that you do care, but right now you don't have the capacity yet. And maybe that's all that you need to say. I'm not saying that, you know, anyone would expect, or maybe most of us probably don't expect a text within like 24 hours if it's not urgent, I think. But for example, for me, I would always make sure that for the people I do care about, they know that the reason why I couldn't reply right away is because I was occupied with other things, or I did want to reply, but maybe I forgot. You know, so that way, at least I can be sensitive with other people's feelings. Because I know that if I'm on that end, I could be triggered to think maybe something was wrong with me. That's why they ignore me. So by the way, this is just how I would handle it.
Yeah.
Not saying that you have to,
Uh-huh.
but because I came from a place of knowing that I could feel hurt.
Yeah.
Because of that allows me to, at least I want to go the extra mile to
Yeah.
be more sensitive
Yes.
with others.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on that. But at the same time, that's why it's important for you to know that who are the ones that
Yeah.
are most important in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most of the time I agree with you because I know that I was hurt from that. I have close friends that I know. And they know me because I think I always communicate that I'm not a big texter. And then I think, yeah, if it's not urgent, if they are trying to tell me something or need my advice or anything, and I can't reply immediately, I always try to like get back to them within 24 hours. Whether, giving them advice or telling them that I don't have the capacity, but then like at least having some kind of response, and it's okay to give a response of like, not right now.
So this I can totally relate to you, and hopefully my suggestion could be helpful. Is I'm also not a big texter. And you probably also know this as well because we barely text, guys.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about the closest friends to me is that we actually don't text all the time.
Yeah.
And if anything, we just send memes or like just talk about funny stuff.
Yeah.
But this also going back to the number one that I told you earlier is to establish the principle. So one of the things that people know very clearly about me, or at least the people who know me enough, is that I'm not very into small talks.
Yeah.
You know? So, for example, every time when we meet up, we always have very long, deep conversation, and I'm fully present with you, and I spend all my energy, my time, and my attention on you. You know that.
Yeah.
Which is why it's very easy for me to not feel obligated to always have to reply to someone immediately when they just send me very long texts of talking about what they are going through, because guess what, I'm just gonna tell them, do you want to get on a call?
Yeah.
Because I don't have the time to reply to everyone's text, and also texting removes a lot of the context that are important in the conversation. So for me, it's either let's get on a call and then I'm here for you. Or do you need me right now? Because I can also meet you in person, like when you get a chance to catch up in person, and I'm there for you fully. I'm present, and we can find a date where we can meet up. Because everyone who knows me knows that about me. That even if we don't talk on a regular basis, but when I'm with someone, I'm fully present. And that allows you to not feel obligated to always be to always text back all the time on mini conversations. It's also not like impactful for that person either. And it's draining your energy, and when your energy is drained, you're not going to be helpful.
Exactly.
And it's not going to be helpful for any of you, because on the one hand your friends feel like you don't give them enough attention, and on the other hand you feel like I don't have energy for you, and you build that resentment, right? So I know that we are crossing that almost an hour of recording, but this is such a great conversation for us to have actually, and I'm glad that you shared openly with me, and I really hope that you realize how beautiful and how vibrant you are. Like you are so, like when I think of you, I think of let me try to think, like
always getting lost in New York.
No, the cotton candy, the colorful cotton candy. Like that's the image that shows up in my mind when I think of you. Like you're so vibrant and you're like full of life.
Thank you.
And I think it shines through not just your energy but also your physical appearance. You should embrace that. And the people who are meant to be in your life, they all appreciate that about you. You know, like you're already enough. Okay?
Yeah. Great. Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, of course. I hope that is helpful.
Yeah. That's great. I'm kind of shy.
Yeah, she's
and
blushing
I'm easily
right now.
sensitive.
She's always blushing and feels shy whenever I compliment her. Which is a quality that I love about you. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us for lunch. You barely ate anything.
Yeah. Oh no, I ate half, so the
I
rest
need to
is
stop
yours.
talking so that she can finish it. But yeah, thank you guys for being here with us, and we hope that this is helpful. Sorry.
Oh no, this should be cut.
Phuonggy is getting emotional. Aww. Let me give you a hug. Aww, my baby sister. I'm always here for you.
Thank you.
I'm always here for you.
I'm just easily touched.
I'm always here for you.
Yeah.
We will talk to you guys again soon, and yeah, subscribe to Blooming Crisis so that you don't miss out the new episode. Hey. Bye guys.
Bye.